Okay, so my name's Adi. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Applied Blockchain and also an initiative called Fern. I'm going to talk you through this a bit now. So Applied Blockchain is a company that's been around for 2.5 years, a startup in London that's been developing blockchain solutions for clients. And this is the team. They all sit in Canary Wharf, not far from here. The company itself has been developing solutions for over 20 clients. We've got a team of 40 people. Gartner selected us in the top 20 blockchain companies worldwide for 2 years in a row, and one of only 4 small companies in that list. So really we've been very lucky with all the types of clients we've been working with. We've got a 50-50 mix of startups and corporates. The corporates include some big names that you'll have heard of, so some of the banks, including Barclays, Bank of America, Bank of Colombia, airlines, including KLM, and SITA, which is a company owned by all the airlines, Vodafone, Lloyd's Register, Shell. Shell actually invested in the company when they awarded us a very large project. We also work with a bunch of startups, which I can take you through afterwards if anyone's interested. Within the UK, we work quite closely with government as well. We helped to launch the all-party parliamentary group on blockchain. We've been working with a group called Global Digital Finance, which is looking at how standards can be set for tokenization, and especially from a UK perspective. We're members of Level 39. Now I'm going to talk about Fern, because when we raised that capital from Shell and actually from another VC called Calibrate, we really did that to develop product. And we wanted to solve a problem that we saw that all of the clients that we were servicing had. And we figured that if they've got that problem, everyone else has the same problem. And this is a problem that we believe is inherent in the blockchain industry at the moment. So first of all, why use blockchain? Well, we believe because it gives you group security. So rather than having a database in one place, that database is distributed to a group, and the group each has control of that database, and for anybody to instigate fraud or to undermine it, they need to undermine the majority of the group. They need to be able to break into or undermine the copies of the ledgers held by the different parties in that group. So we think of it as group security. And when that gets undermined, so if somebody takes control of the majority of copies of the database, of the ledger, we call that a Sybil attack. Now, there's a platform out there called Ethereum, which has a public blockchain network, which has a whole host of nodes, so 16,000 nodes at the moment, so 16,000 copies distributed out there, and could actually be thought of as super secure in terms of deploying your blockchain applications. But in practice, it's actually very, very slow. And if you want to deploy an application today, it doesn't really scale very well on Ethereum. So what do? We've got 24,000 blockchain applications, according to EY, that have been built in the past 2 years. Where are all these deployed? So first of all, we know that they're all deployed on a range of private blockchain platforms. So we have Ethereum used in a private blockchain environment. We have Hyperledger Fabric and other Hyperledger projects. We have Corda. We have BigChainDB, Tendermint, and so on. And there are literally hundreds of these blockchain platforms out there now. But if you look at most of these solutions that are being built, including a lot of the ones that we've built, they're actually deployed by one company now or a very small group. And that means that in reality, they're quite centrally controlled. And if anybody wanted to instigate fraud on those ledgers, they could probably do so quite easily. Even if you have a small group, they could quite easily get together, or there could even be bribery going on and so on, to actually undermine that ledger. And what that means is that they're undermining the reason for using blockchain in the first place, right? They might as well be building the solution on an Oracle database. So this is kind of the conundrum. This is the problem that most companies trying to implement blockchain are in at the moment. So we've tried to come up with a solution for this. And the first part of it is admitting that private blockchains exist and thinking that maybe they're not a bad thing, but they need to be done properly. So what we thought about is how do we introduce more trust into the private network environment? And for that, we need more nodes. So we need parties that can provide hosting of copies of the database into these private network environments. So we envisage this marketplace where we have node providers, or master node providers, as we could call them, which may provide nodes into multiple environments. But these are all separate nodes. So I provide one node to a law blockchain, another one to an art blockchain, and so on. Now, the second problem we face is identity and compliance, because if you're a regulated business, as we hope most businesses are, you face all sorts of compliance requirements. You have to be GDPR compliant, depending on if you're in the EU, depending on the data you hold, you might have to be inside a certain jurisdiction, and so on. Most of you who are involved in any kind of business are familiar with some of the constraints. That means that you can't just have anybody host your node. You need to know that they're compliant. Otherwise, the business activity that you're conducting on behalf of customers is not going to be compliant. So how do you know that these parties that are hosting nodes for you are compliant? So first of all, you need to identify them and they need to prove that. The problem is that if you know who they are, you could actually bribe them, right? You could actually defraud them. So if you had 10 nodes, you could come along to those 10 nodes and actually, without your customers knowing, just say, look, here's something, please, let's get together and just make this change here. And actually, depending on their honesty and integrity, they could participate in that. And that would, again, undermine the ledger itself and would mean that the private blockchain doesn't have the security of the public blockchain. So how do we solve for that? The answer is that we need a combination of identity and compliance. So you know who the parties are, and you know that they're compliant, on the one hand. But on the other hand, you need a level of anonymity, so that you wouldn't be able to come along and ask them to collude with you in undermining the security of the ledger. And so the solution is this Fern ecosystem, right, which is basically a group of companies that can provide nodes. And this could be on any type of ledger. This could be on any type of blockchain platform. But it's a group. And that group is all identified. So anybody can come along and see who's in that group. And if you want to use that group to host nodes for your blockchain, you can onboard them all as suppliers. You can have them all audited. You can ask them all to prove that they've got the credentials that you need in order to tick the boxes for your organization. So they're all identified and compliant. The thing that you won't know is who in that group is going to provide nodes into your specific private blockchain solution. So if you wanted to undermine the network, if you wanted to commit fraud, that would be very difficult because you wouldn't know who to target for that, right? You wouldn't know who's providing service to you. So this is a relatively new paradigm, but it's a way that we think we can create a trustless environment for real businesses, real compliant businesses to engage in. And we've received funding from large companies, including Shell. We've got some very large clients, and we're working with them to understand how this can be implemented for the solutions that we've been building for the small companies, but also for the big ones. And these are so the small companies we've been working with, and some of the ones that aren't our clients, have joined us already on this journey, and actually agreed to start using Fern. And in order to launch Fern, we've created a token, a utility token, which is a staking token. And we're very familiar with the space. We've been helping startups with their solutions and token sales, and we've come up with something that we believe is a genuine, authentic token model, which is a staking model to actually underpin this solution. So that pool of providers, of companies that would provide nodes, you can almost think of them as miners for the corporate world. They would actually have to hold stake in this token. We've set up the company in the UK, and we've done this because most of our clients are in the UK, and we want them to be able to use this solution and everything we've built around it. So these are startups and companies that have already signed up. Compliant Advantage you might have heard of. It's a fast-growing UK startup that does AML, and most of our other clients are either using or going to use their services as part of this solution. You can find out more on our website, which is fern.network, and there's also the Fern protocol Telegram group, which is really where we put most of the information about the project. We've got booths outside for Applied Blockchain, for development of blockchain projects, and also for Fern itself, for anybody that's interested. We're in private sale at the moment, and once we've been through that, then we'll open it up for a public sale as well. Have I got time for questions?
Yeah, we got a couple of minutes for questions, so we'll put the Slido up, and if there's anyone from the audience, we've got a mic. Any questions coming up?
Yeah.
Why are you putting out most of your information on Telegram? Just out of interest.
Yeah, so we've decided to run the token sale from the UK, and we've decided to do utility token because we actually believe that that's a genuine model, an innovative model that fits into what we're trying to do here. So this is a not-for-profit organization. This is a protocol that we put out there as open source. Fern, the company, will have no control over how the companies use this protocol. They'll use it themselves with each other to build up reputation. We'll be providing software and help promote the ecosystem for them. So for that, we believe that the way to do this was through a token model. And I'm happy to take you through all the detail because we've done a lot of work on this. But that's why we've done that. Now, by promoting it in the UK, or by setting it up in the UK, we've used an international law firm, a reputable law firm, and they've given us advice about how we should promote this in terms of international securities laws and so on. So we're working with media in accordance with their guidelines.
Thanks. We've got a question back here.
Yeah.
Thanks for the presentation. It's a basic question.
Yeah.
So why do big companies need, master nodes?
Why do they?
Need the master nodes?
Why do they need more master nodes?
Yeah.
So I believe that blockchain can help these companies in the first place, or can actually help their users, really, their customers, by providing a more secure environment where their transactions take place, right? And this is more secure because it's not just controlled by one company, right? So we heard earlier about all the different breaches. I think the gentleman from Nationwide described some of the breaches that have happened very recently in the payment space. And these are because, these are partly because we have centrally held databases, which are easier to corrupt or to target than the distributed database, which would be harder to change, again, because of that group security through the consensus mechanism. But that's how you get the value from the technology. So that's why I think you need more nodes. And it's not just about the number of nodes, it's about who actually controls those nodes and their propensity to collude to corrupt the ledger. So I think by bringing in independent parties and by bringing in anonymous parties to the network itself, then I think you start to create that, and that's the way that you actually have the real value from the technology. When you look at, I advise you all, when you look at all these blockchain solutions, ask, there's some big corporates out there saying there's a lot going on. Ask, where are the nodes? Who's actually hosting them? Is there an administrator that can just take the whole thing down? And in most cases, you'll find it probably is.
Thank you. We can take one more question before tea. Anyone else? No, everyone wants tea. So big hand for Adi and come back at 11:30. Thank you.